Hello and welcome to my podcast. This one's called How It All Began. Now, I've had a bit of an absolute disaster, a baboonry fuck up this morning because I've recorded this, filmed it, and I've just learnt the lesson that do not have your camera plugged in with your new microphone because you get a buzz. Did the artwork and everything for it, was about to press render, just needed to chop the ends and the start and the end off, and I was like, wow, that sounds terrible. What's happened there? So great, brilliant. Start all over again. Golf clap, Stephen. Can you hear the golf clap? So this one's called How It All Began, and I just want to tell a bit of a story, going back to how I ended up getting into filming and stuff like that, because I've been filming a long time. Sorry, I just moved my chair. I do have a cup of coffee, by the way, as well. The other night, Jack called us a YouTuber, and fair enough, I am sort of a YouTuber, but there was a long time before YouTube in filming. So when I was a kid, I was told I basically had dyslexia, and I was probably misdiagnosed. I've probably got some crazy fucking ADHD or something like that. Definitely got some kind of personality disorder, that's for sure. But as a kid, I didn't, I struggled reading, and I was lucky enough to have grandparents to put me in a private school one day a week in Durham as well, to try and better me reading and spelling and stuff like that. So I had no escapism when I was a kid. And I was 30-year-old before I read my first book, which was Bone House by Brian Freeman. Picked it up because my car had broken. I tried to read it on the book, tried to read it on the bus, and I really got engrossed in it. And obviously 30-year-old and not having that escapism of reading, I grew up watching movies. Ever since I seen films like The Labyrinth on television at Christmas, I was absolutely fascinated by Batman. I was just like, wow, just films, the images there, storytelling, the fantasy factor. I was always fascinated by movies, and the 80s was a great time for movies, an absolute great time for movies. The rise of VHS as well. And, that's all I did. I watched movies. I watched movies off television. Me and Jack have just done a podcast about The Predator. And The Predator, I had Predator taped off the television. I remember seeing The Gremlins at the Pictures. It's one of the first films I remember seeing at the Pictures. I shouldn't have seen it at the Pictures. I was so young. We were in the Isle of Man. My parents were off doing something. My dad did a lot of stuff with rally championships, and I ended up being tagged along with Dad's friends, and they all went to see The Gremlins at the Pictures. Definitely too young to go, but Gremlins is one of them films which has a PG or it's an 18. No, we need a 15. It was one of them films that they broke the mold, that they needed to be a midway of what films should be. And I just remember when my dad's friends saying, it was probably Stodge going, should he really be watching this? You're saying that now, why Stripe's fucking melting in a fountain. So I was fascinated by movies. I mean, that is one of the reasons I'm a massive fan of The Gremlins. The Gremlins is so it's one of the first movies I remember. Or even The Goonies back in the day, that adventure, that childhood fascination, Stand By Me. These are all films that I seen back in the day at such a young age, which really, really inspired me. And, fast track to mid-90s, and my parents had split up, they had divorced, and my dad moved all the way to Motueka, New Zealand, which we're looking at the map, and if you know what my editing room's like, there's a map on the roof. And my dad might as well have died. That's, Motueka, New Zealand's probably the farthest place you can get away from the northeast of England. If I want to push it, I could probably move to the fucking Shetland. Even though I tell the story of that, when I got married years back, my dad got from New Zealand to here before my auntie got from Shetland. It takes longer to get to Shetland than it does New Zealand. Anyway, different story, different time. So I don't know what my parents' plan was, but I went to New Zealand in 95, and then I went again in 96, and in 96 I was there for a very, very long time, and I just got sent on my own. I was like, Mum drops us off in England, Dad picks us up in New Zealand, and that's probably why I'm a bit strange. 96 on a plane to New Zealand, 2 massive flights. I went to LA that way. No touchscreen televisions, no 100 movies on demand, no flip your control pad around in this computer game. Just fucking sit there, shut the fuck up, and here's some cardboard to eat. And I was just a young kid, you know what I mean? And when I got to New Zealand, I mean, I didn't know anyone. I mean, Motueka is an absolutely beautiful town. It's one big long strip of road, and then you've got the plots of land. You've got houses by the beach, and then you've got big like houses with acres of like fucking gardens, and they're all flat, like flat houses. You don't see many double. Then you didn't see many double-story buildings and stuff like that. They do have the odd earthquake. I was in an earthquake in '96 in New Zealand, even though it was very mild. It's still a fucking earthquake. I remember being told how to stand up in geography and explain to people what it's like to be in an earthquake. I was like, well, you know, it's because you don't get earthquakes in Britain yet, still. But yeah, so all I did though, you know, Motueka had 2 amazing video shops. I will do a separate podcast when I talk about video shops in general, because I am a nerd. But yeah, I used to rent videos and sit and watch videos, and I know what my stepmom is trying to say, or was trying to get pushed into my mind. I used to sit around all day watching films, and the way my dad's house was at the time, you had the couch, you had this like half partial wall that you could see through with the bookcases, where Sam used to dance to Right Said Fred when he was like 1 year old. Sam's going to hate me telling that story, to Dipley, Dipley about the way you do. He probably doesn't even remember it, but he probably hates the fact that I've mentioned that. So yeah, you had the television. So the way it was, you had the living room open plan to the kitchen to a little dining desk, then you had an open plan, and then you had patio doors. So I'm sitting there watching the film, and outside the patio doors is the garden. At the bottom of the garden there's a fence, and outside that there's a massive field, and there's a fucking mountain. And I can see what my stepmom was trying to say by saying, get yourself out, get out there, do something, don't sit around watching movies. But I was fascinated by video shops. You're walking in those video shops in New Zealand, and those VHSs I'd always wanted to see. This is long before internet buying, or like VHSs were only coming out in certain countries. You had to see them externally. You couldn't just walk into a video shop and buy a video brand new. It had to do well on rental first of anything before it even got a release. So I was fascinated. I was like seeing films I'd always want to see. Coffee sip. And I was really fascinated. You know, at that point I was so absorbing, like Johnny Five, input films. I was watching everything. I mean, they had a deal on, and I used to have to walk to the video shop. I mean, it was a good walk to the video shop as well. I always remember like Motueka having this one street. You would get across the bridge, you would turn right, and it was like a big square. You know, you'd walk all the way down and all the way left, but it would take a while, and I would always go and get VHSs. Get out there and do something. So at the time, communication between New Zealand, it was weird. Telephone was the only way. You took a picture, had to wait to get it developed. No like send, you know what I mean? Picture, developed, posted. Video, video was the only way you could do it. Filmed on an old VHS camera, looked around the house. It was the only way to sort of communicate with New Zealand. This is what New Zealand looks like. This is what's happening in England. Or your dad's garage is now being knocked down. That's the garage knocked down. The building house is there. That kind of stuff. So in the early 90s, that's what I was like. The families were doing. The side of the families had invested in VHS cameras. Now my granddad had filmed a lot of VHS stuff in the early 90s. I actually found last year a VHS which I got digitalized. I haven't watched most of it yet because I was like, fuck me, it just blew my mind. I'm like 7 or 8 year old in the video footage, learning to swim, and it's about an hour and a half of video footage, and it's I think it's in Spain or Portugal, and there is some American footage somewhere as well. So yeah, it was proper, like, you know, I've never, when it comes to being on camera, I've never really been used to the camera. I've been used to the camera. It's never really bothered us. I know some people, when they first see themselves on camera, freak the fuck out. That's not me. That doesn't sound like me. Because you do sound totally different to what you do in your own head. I don't know. It seem the same. Seem to sound the same when I say it back anyway. But VHSs. What the fuck am I talking about VHSs for? I'm talking about filming myself on camera. Yeah, I've never been bothered about on camera, especially when you're like 8 or 9 year old and a videotape's doing the rounds of you on a school pantomime when Daniel McGuigan accidentally knocks you off the stage in front of an entire room and you fall in at the Christmas tree. Thanks, Daniel, for that. Yeah, so I've never really cared about what I look like or sound like on camera. And my stepmom was like, well, film something. You into films, film something. So then I started picking up the camera and sort of like looked around and started filming little bits, and then all of a sudden my head goes 100 miles an hour. I was really, from the very moment I picked up the camera, I was interested in video editing. Because I wanted to cut to that. Film that, didn't like that, needed to cut that. Wanted to look at that, wanted to cut that. And, you know, I was going around and I was like, right, filming that, then you have to rewind the tape or whatever. And it's no like click that. It was a different time, but the love was instantly there. I was filming it. Now, if you want to film something, if you want to edit something, you've got to film it. If you want to film it, you've got to produce it. If you're going to produce it, you're going to have to step in front of the camera now and again. If you want to be an editor, you learn so much from just being like, right, this is what I want, how do I get it? And on the early days, I mean, in New Zealand, that was like, right, okay. But the technology wasn't there, you know what I mean? When I came back to Britain, I wanted a VHS camera. I had to fucking saved money up to get a camera. I just wanted to film more stuff and send stuff back to New Zealand, that kind of thing. I was really fascinated. Everything was new. Like, what's that? Film it. You know what I mean? Then there was no like restrictions on your sponsorships or your fucking what you wear or anything. Just film that, film this, film that. And then you know, I was still in school at the time, and some of the best friends you're ever going to meet in your life are your school friends. You know, you're never not going to have them. I know Facebook is a bit of a naughty thing these days for keeping up with people's lives rather than ringing them and say, hi, are you alright? I'll send them a message. I even go knocking on the door. Remember when you had to go and knock on somebody? What are you doing? They're not in. Bollocks, where they're going to be. Go and find them. Be down the woods playing Predator. There's Jack at the top of the stream, top of the hill shouting, let's rock! Anyway, you would, when I came back, obviously my friends in school, you very unique bunch of friends. You know, people drift apart, but when I started filming, you had people like Raoul. Now Raoul's very funny, very sarcastic, very quick-witty, crazy, funny, very, you never know what he's going to do, you know. Raoul's done some absolutely hilarious stuff on camera, accidentally. You know what I mean? Just Raoul. Pearson, the small one of the group, angry, heart of gold, absolutely heart of gold, one of my best friends from school and still on now. He's just like, but he's absolutely comedy gold as well. The heart of gold, the comedy gold, because he's so angry. Yeah, you know, he's always up for doing stuff, wanting to be involved, and you know, he's had his moments, he's had his catastrophes as well. Scott, like the school jock, if we ever had school jocks, not really, but Scott was very like, hey, come on, let's do it, you know, do fucking extreme stuff like hop around with a firework and stuff like that. Very ambitious. Darren was always quiet in the background, you know, where you would have that different kind of personalities, you know, like a group of friends in there, and you know, Darren was a big part. He was always quiet, often helped out filming. Kieran, utter psychopath. Hiya, Kieran. Kieran was a great friend in school. Very quick-witted as well, but also very like, I'll do that, you know what I mean? Some of the stuff Kieran's done is hilarious, but then also like scary when you look back at it. Yeah, he's such a psychopath. Again, comedy gold. Chambers lived up 2 doors up the street from us, you know. He was a bad influence when I was a teenager because we used to get hammered and drunk. And I mean, I remember when Chambers fell off the bus stand one night and broke his foot. And he came hopping down the next day. He was like, what happened last night? I was like, well, it's on camera. It's just like, never show that footage. Just Chambers, boom, just off like 7 foot off a bus stand to the floor. You know, which is stupid. And, you know, they're the friends I'd filmed at the time. And I was so interested in how to develop this, you know. And what I had to do was hook it up to a VHS. Now, if anyone's listening to this, do you know what I mean there? Hooking a video camera up to a VHS, and you've got to sort of write down everything you want and plan where you're going to put it. And it's all on VHS tapes or high 8 later on. and you're like, right, I'll need that bit there, and then you've got to set the VHS player up, and then you've got to set up like the cables up, and then you've got to set like get it framed right, and then you've got to like click frame, then you've got to press record on both, record on one and play on the other at the same time. And if you're talking about trying to do some kind of music video, this is how you had to do it. You had to do that, but then you had to also be listening to music in the background, and then you had to sort of wipe the entire audio from VHS, keep the picture on, and put audio over the top. Now, does that sound complicated as fuck on a VHS? Yes, it was, and yes, it is. Anyway, they were the early days. And once my friends started to see ourselves played back on camera and all that, again, going back to the whole going, that's not me, that doesn't sound like me. It opens a jar of worms where everyone sort of develops their own kind of character on camera, and everyone has like the inner jokes, and everyone's personalities really shine, and that's what fascinated us about it. I love the art. I would be very artistic as well. I'd be like, ooh, tree. I'm like, why is there a tree there? Because I like a tree. What's in that tree? Fucking, I don't know. It's better than fuck all in it. You know, why is there a refrigerator in that tree? Well, Ned put that fridge there. That's a different story later on. But it's just like, it was very artistic. Then it was a case of like, you know, like the friendship circle, you know, and that's what I loved. You know, I wasn't sending this stuff back to New Zealand, the stupid stuff. Like stuff you would do as a teenager going into your like 18s. And I mean, first job working at Quick Save, I saved up a lot of money and I wanted to buy a camera. And two things happened here. I was working at Quick Save and I took a new job, and one of the first people I met, and is one of the biggest influences of anything. You know, I am going to talk about something else later on, but it's a case of like, that didn't make sense, but one of the biggest influences for me was Ned, known as Bill Podmore's Nose on the internet. They were the biggest inspiration for me. Unbelievable. I can't say thank you enough to them, because, and him, because I was wanting to meet bands, get music, and I was aware of copyright earlier on. And Ned had been in the band in the early 80s, who had made a really big name for themselves. They played at the Royal Albert Hall, they played for the Prime Minister. They were one of the most offensive and like absolutely toe rag bands of the 80s. You know, I've seen pictures of them from back in the day when they're all looking like misused of the Young Ones cast, Maggie Thatcher's heads, you know, the Gill Bridge. You know, I've just done a film with Branches, and one of the covers, fucking Ned's, I think one of the songs is called The Gill Bridge Views, which I probably should have used in Branches. I'm sure they chucked a life-size model hanging off the Gill Bridge. I mean, the fucking, for the time in the early 80s, this band was fucking terrorising people in a funny way. You know, they've all got hearts of gold, so they're all fucking stupid. And that to me, like meeting Ned, when I was meeting Ned, because we used to work together and we just have to put up some shit, but Ned's stories and seeing Bill Podmore's Nose reunite in the whole Better Than F.A thing, and how they were a big influence in making the music and the songs for the videos and stuff like that. Seeing their friendship years later reminisce is just like, it's such inspiration. Like, you got them like trying to make a music video of watching that tree like early on, and like Ned's just like, yeah, we'll get everyone together, and you see everyone get together, and I thought, this is fucking great, this, like everyone's just fucking going on about like reminiscing and that, like it's massive. I mean, Pearson and Rowell are all there in the background, everyone's fucking helping out on this, watching this tree video. Next thing you know, Ned sets his firework off. No one had fucking read the description or anything about the fireworks, and next thing you know, you've got a band trying to do a video shoot, and there's a 24-shot air bomb going off right behind the drummer, going up, hitting off the trees, and it's fucking raining air bombs. I mean, fucking some of the close calls, mind. Again, massive inspiration for us. And at this time as well, Mini DV was coming along, and I remember seeing like adverts for them in film magazines, you know, reading Empires and Total Films, Mini DV, and you're like the next generation of cameras. And DVD was coming along as well, and you know, things were like, the idea of copy and pasting a DVD, you know, was a pipe dream, but then suddenly became a reality. And Mini DV cameras, I saved up, I got my first Mini DV camera. Mini DV tapes, fuck me, they're expensive. I did this before on the video. I've got a box down here which I've been using for Branches. It's about 40 to 50 tapes in that box right there. I must have nearly 300, maybe more, mini DV tapes from back in the day, because basically what happened was you got the mini DV and you were finally able, you got the camera, you were finally able to get the footage on your computer, so you could finally edit it. None of this stop-start on the VHS anymore. It's on there and you've got editing software. I mean, it all costs, you know, it costs for editing software, it costs for the camera, it costs for the Firewire cable, costs for a fucking new port to be put in your computer. And you then, memory, like fucking hell, like memory then, like you would have this video footage finally on your computer, but then your computer might not be able to push it, and it was slow pace and it was like always watching egg timer. But the patience and results was like mint. It's like I was working on the Condog video last night, like 4 o'clock in the morning, this morning, and it's like I've got like 8 tail ends at random takes, just cut them down to 10 frames so they're still in the production, and you know, you pick them up, you chuck them in there, you go like that, like a fucking Rubik's Cube, and next thing you know, it's fucking, there we go, that's edited. You just couldn't do that back in the day with VHS and all that. You know, the leaps and bounds now, it's just like fucking hell. You can do it on your phone. You know, I've seen people like that on the internet. Not then, we're still talking like 2000 here. But yeah, I had to buy mini DV tapes, store them, keep notes, make ideas of what I wanted, and then, you know, like invest in it, like learn from your mistakes, film stuff. Like I was saying before, I recorded this morning on this brand new microphone. Now no, not to have it on with now no, not to put it on when it's charging on the camera, you know what I mean. But yeah, you know, the I'm gonna have this drink a cup of coffee. I'm losing my trail of thought again. I wasn't planning on doing this twice. So yeah, anyway, mini DV was there, able to edit stuff, started meeting a lot of bands, and then there was a massive shift. Some different inspirations. First off, Jack got older. Jack was always the runt of the gang, the younger one, brother to Kieran. Kieran went in the army, and Jack came along, and when Jack came along, Jack was like the funny one of the group, very rubber-faced he was, very full of energy, and he was a great addition to sort of the group of friends, even though he'd always been there, like on camera, he was hilarious. The crosses between people were good. And then I met people like Rich and Cooper. Cooper was like a lunatic, but a fresh shoulder pain. He was doing stupid stuff as well. Casper hates the camera, but Casper was good at filming. So it was this nice little group of friends, ambition, and then Jackass happened. Now, I just needed a baboonery there, just like paused, went off looking at the camera going, right, need to stand here for this. But no, Jackass hit big and out of nowhere as well. I mean, I look back at the shows now and they're very chopped, you know, there's like a really good idea. I mean, watch out, Beatles About and Who You've Been Framed. And then you would take stuff like CKY, just chuck it in there, higgly piggly, and there was an episode of Jackass. And I had people talking, this is long before YouTube. It's long before the internet, and what that did was open a market. Now, I was always artistic about stuff. I was always like, "Ooh, film that, film this," and I was developing digital forms now rather than VHSs and stuff like that. I was now looking at doing it digitally, maybe as a DVD kind of stuff, and I was editing constantly. And everyone was trying to outdo each other at this point. You know, the advancements in cameras. And everyone was meeting everyone. Like, it was weird as well because a lot of people knew each other through camera but never met. And it was great that everyone, like, this friendship that had been building, and you know, everyone was like pushing towards the more extreme. And Jackass, it was very viral in its time. But again, I was always off doing something artistic. I would always want like weird stuff in there. And I wasn't even 21-year-old when I was approached for the first DVD deal. And it was for a lot of money back then as well, and I think I made the right choice. I'll talk about this more, but you know, there was a lot of push to take Better Than F.A and make it more extreme. And you know, when you tell your friends who you've been fucking around with for years that, oh, like, finally there might be a film here, everyone's going to start upping the ante. You know what I mean? Everyone wants to be the star of the film, you know, because like all of a sudden he comes Jack, and then Cooper's like, who's this guy? But like Jack's always been there, and like Raul's just like, well, what? And like, yeah, everyone's trying to outdo each other, being more sarcastic. Some people like Chambers disappeared. You know, I don't think Chambers is even in Killing the Boredom. And to be honest with you, I was freaky as out. I was editing some footage not long back, and some footage of me just out randomly, and Chambers appears in this crowd of people and says, hey, and just disappears. Like, fuck me. I mean, the nights like that, to me personally, are like fucking trips down fucking insanity. But, you know, basically, third parties started getting involved, and I remember, you know, it was getting stupidly dangerous. Everyone was trying to outdo each other. I was enjoying it. And again, though, where do you store the footage? External hard drives weren't about. It was, if for a home-based level, it was hard. You know, you film stuff, you could get it on the computer, but then you've got to sort of like upload what you need. You can't upload the random footage. You know, years later, like with branches I've been doing recently, you might find that there's a hidden gem earlier on, but you're focusing on what you're trying to develop. And when I was 21, was the first time we ever showed a demo video of Better Than F.A. and a live audience, and everyone from the film was there, and it was fucking carnage. It was fucking dangerous carnage. Fire extinguishers going off, flour crap everywhere, you know what I mean? It was just fucking carnage. And, you know, life's different, life's changed, and, you know, would my life have been different if I signed the deal? Yeah, I probably would have. I wouldn't have control of my own footage. That'll probably be one thing, but that was it, you know. I didn't think the film was good enough. I was very unsure what was going to happen. And sort of like looking back now, I look at my friendship, and I'm very protective of my friendships. I know I'm a sucker for my own thing for saying that, you know. Facebook's guilty for like not, you know, sending people messages and stuff like that rather than saying, hey, what's up? Because I see loads of video footage every other day, and I might see a clip of Peace, and I haven't seen Peace in maybe 6 months, but I'll be like, alright, I seen you yesterday. No, I didn't see you yesterday. But yeah, I was 21, had a good offer, decided not to go with it. Felt the pressure. And I wouldn't change that for the world now. You know, it's a different time. Like, to go on a little bit of a rant, what wasn't on this last recording was, like, I remember videotaping a lot of stuff, and I remember, again, being artistic about it, where there was a wake-up call and someone didn't even remember what had happened. And I remember sitting down with these people and going, right, look at this footage. And I remember them sitting there and like, that needs to go, this needs to go, we can't have that, this needs to be different, that goes, they can't show that. And I was like, right, well, what about this wake-up call? Right, here's the person reacting to it, and here's me being hearty-farty about it. Like, my room back then was like CDs, DVDs all stuck to the wall, the VHSs were always there. And you could see the television screen reflected of all the DVDs and CDs behind me friend. See, he's reacting to the wake-up call, and you can actually see it in different kind of weird zoomed in like bits and bobs in the background, because it's reflecting off all the cases and stuff. And like, you can't show that. I was like, why? I didn't think it was that bad. You're not actually seeing the footage, because the footage was pretty gross, like, but they were saying like, no, you can't show that because that logo, that band, this band, that t-shirt. Like, what the fuck, really? And then that's what happened, you know, for a long time. You couldn't come around. What happened to have a duct tape on there? Kinney from Stomp 66 still gives a shit for making him turn his t-shirt inside out the Stomp 66 video. Your third party content, you couldn't have that. You couldn't show that. And Better Than F.A. back then, like when I was 21, got budget. It got budget because of copyright. Loads of stuff couldn't go in. It's meant to be a stupid film, an extreme stupid film, and it's getting hammered. And like the digital stuff wasn't there yet. You know, looking back with Killing the Boredom, a lot of stuff was brought back into the film for a new generation, and it was being able to be digitally manipulated so it could be passed without, like, people had the t-shirts blocked out, but then back then you couldn't do it. You especially couldn't do it on fucking VHS, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's a times change, and there's the times have changed as well. Better Than F.A, you couldn't, like, Better Than F.A is, to me, is about a certain time of my life, and group Better Than F.A is about sort of my friendship circles as well. Shout outs to Gali, Kidder, you know, people who came along later on, Mitch, Matty, Ryan, our class as that, Paul Ray being in on it as well. It's a lot, and you know, it's this is how it all began. And I think with branches, I've enjoyed doing branches, but I enjoy doing the film kind of thing. But you know, this podcast is needs to end soon because I need the toilet. But yeah, I'm sorry if I've tailed off, ranted on. Just great to do this again for the second time in a row. But as I say, early begins. It's been filming now, so you go back 95, 96. You know, when I picked up the camera, and I would say around about 97, some of the video footage goes back to. So yeah, it's 21 years. Wow. Terrifying. 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 So yeah, I'm going to go to the toilet, wrap up some stuff, finish up this podcast. So yeah, thanks for listening. Goodbye.